Here we go.
What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show, the home of Epic Conversations. And I'm the host of Epic Conversations, 2020 Best Podcast News Award winner, 2018 Innovation Award winner, given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. I also co-host and co-produce the only online show in the world for dads and fathers that's sponsored by Dove Men Plus Care. And being part of that team, we've reached out to over 400,000 dads, fathers, and male caregivers since 2020. Also, I am a advisor and content creator and content provider to Indie Soup Media, which is an independent content creators website that is started and powered by our good friend Dr. Tachi out of Fort Lauderdale, Florida. There it is on the screen if you're watching live or on the replay. And there's over 30 content creators on that independent content creators platform now, and growing. So always good to have Dr. Tachi in the house, whether she's not here physically or this will also be probably seen on her platform, Indie Soup Media. So let's get some housekeeping. Please subscribe to the Dr. Vibe Show on YouTube and hit the subscribe button. Have a special request. Please subscribe and hit the notification button. We're probably about 30 or 40 followers away from 1,500 subscribers. So if you're up to it, would love you to do that. Also, if you want to advertise your business, product, or service on any of the platforms that I am on, please feel free to email me at dr.vibe@vibeshow.com. You're watching Black Canada Talking on most Sunday afternoons. It's on every Sunday. I'm going to say most. It's on Sunday afternoons at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, in and about that, where we get Black Canadians to share their thoughts, POVs, opinions about stories, home, neighborhood, province, state, country, around the world. And a regular that is part of the Black Canada Talking family, Cesar Ndema-Moussa. What is up, Cesar? How you doing?
Hi, Dr. Vibe. Hi, everyone. Thank you always for having me. It's a pleasure as always.
Absolutely. And
Oh, I got disconnected.
okay. Yeah. Can you hear me now?
I hear you now.
Yes. Where's the boss of the house?
It's downstairs. This little girl loves sushi.
Okay.
Sushi and Starbucks, and I find myself eating sushi because of her. Because surprisingly, I'm not a fan of sushi, but she loves it, so I accompany her. Yeah.
Question for you. It's a little bit after Father's Day. How was your Father's Day?
Well, honestly, great. I encourage, and you know what? Thank you so much for asking this question because I know you are an older brother who is very invested into the well-being of men. Notably brothers, and we see a lot of so-called black gender war online in terms of black women versus black men on some platforms or some pages, whatever you want to call it. And I think it's a great opportunity to remind our people that we need to really stop a lot of this foolishness and come together. I had a great Father's Day, one of those celebrations that personally I don't really care about. But, my spouse wanted to make it special. She took me and our daughter out. It was great. We discovered a new restaurant, to be quite honest. And the point is not so much, and it's never about the money. It's about the family time, the quality of family time, and the creation of memories. For those who wonder, this is all my wife's language. It's not originally for me, but no, I really encourage my brothers and my sisters. Please heal. Please take the time to find someone of quality as you work on yourself, as you elevate yourself not just financially, not just in terms of education, but also spiritually, mentally, physically. Yes, improve your odds and dare to try to be with someone who deserves you as you deserve to be with them. And please, we need to stop this constant false black gender war that we read too much of online.
It's interesting. And before we get into our topics, I
Mhm.
I have chatted with a number of fathers about this past Father's Day, and it wasn't really exciting for them. Like I was chatting with a gentleman this morning, two of his kids didn't even wish him a happy Father's Day, and their
It,
relationship is sort of questionable, but they didn't
mm,
even wish him a happy Father's Day.
well, you know what? Um, let's be honest. Um, I would not blame a man who didn't get wished Happy Father's Day, but I would invite his brother to question what has so soured the relationship between him and the children. Even if he says it's the woman's fault, the mother's fault, she created distance. Uh, and I mean, I'm father of a 3-year-old. I will not dare to pretend as if I have, grown children. But I would dare to say that everybody who is a father has been where I am at today. No matter how old your child is, he or she had to go through the first years of their life, and it's not easy. Relationships are not easy for men, just as for women. But we must dare to believe in one another and to keep making efforts that is worth it. But this requires, as I was saying earlier, working on ourselves and being with someone that we actually want to be with, not someone that we feel forced or trapped or lacking options to be with. As my father told me, no matter how beautiful, intelligent, educated, uh, rich, whatever qualities you want to give to someone, if at the basis of it you don't have respect and you don't have feelings, even if you don't call it necessarily love, at least that you like the person, if you don't have those simple elements of respect, likability, and communication, the relationship is doomed to fail. Is doomed to fail.
Yeah, well, we could talk about this for the whole conversation today. We'll park that. I think it's a conversation we need to come back to in a sooner rather than later date, because I think it's really important that a lady that I respect named Dr. Alicia Watkins, who is the wife of Dr. Boyce Watkins, is a certified trauma specialist. She has her PhD in social work and has worked for many years in this area. She just released a video last night and gave her a little bit of insight of her thoughts and feelings about, trauma, therapy. And she said 90% of the stuff you hear on YouTube about relationships is wrong.
Hmm.
And that's from someone who has their PhD in it and also is a trauma specialist. I thought it was a very interesting statement. But before we even get even to more, so you are appearing. You're going to be interviewed this week.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much, for bringing that up. Indeed, I'd like to give a shout out to an African American brother, brother Malachi Gross. I invite you, everyone, to pay attention to his channel, um, Life Coach Malachi. This Thursday, 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So Toronto, Ottawa, Montreal, New York. He will be interviewing me on Black Religious Trauma, aka my presentation to the Global Center for Religious Research, aka
Wow.
international presentation that is certified, notably in the context of religious trauma, by the American Psychological um, Association, APA, for the Global Center for Religious Research. I am a member of the Academic Society of the Global Center for Religious Research and certified in religious trauma, but I specialize on Black religious trauma. Our people need to heal. Our people need to need to find back the essence. And I won't say too much here, but let me put it to you this way. One of our great leaders, whose face is behind me, Martin Luther King, Reverend, Pastor, Christian, all you want to call it, he got assassinated after he started to have a speech that was a little bit too pro-black, including starting to call out the ills, the evil of religion upon black people, basically awakening to his black spirituality, in truth.
All right. Well, we have had the appetizer. Let's get to the main course. Our first
Mhm.
conversation topic today: the right wing in the West and the Ten Commandments. Cesar, kick it off.
Well, I will say two concepts here. Well, one concept that maybe some people have heard about: Christian fascism is a concept that will be coming more and more to the ears of people. And you can see this as lately as in Louisiana, uh, the imposition of the Ten Commandments in terms of any place of education, aka public education. So, independently of one's faith, they will be subjected to basically a reading of it. Now, this is interesting in the sense where, for those who follow international politics, right wing movements have basically won practically most elections of the European Union that occurred, if I'm correct, 2 weeks ago. And in France, it came to a point where next Sunday, as we speak, next Sunday, there will be legislative elections, aka elections to form the government and, in essence, to nominate the next prime minister. The Rassemblement National, former Front National, so the right wing um, party of France, is basically prone to win. And part of what these right wing parties all advocate is a return to religion in the classrooms, a return to the Judeo Christian heritage of Europe. Now, don't get me wrong here. I will not be a hypocrite. You heard me speak before. I don't do into hypocrisy. I myself am a result of the Catholic education school. And I've had the honor, and I really say the honor, of being a consultant for the French Catholic School Board in Ontario, the largest French school board in Canada outside of Quebec, aka outside of Montreal. But, and if I, if, for the sake of honesty, I'm putting my daughter into Catholic school. I am. Am I not sounding contradictory? In principle, yes. In reality, I'm not. I notice I've been a consultant. The Catholic school board that I'm speaking of has done a lot of work. Example, Dr. Vibe, as you're in Toronto, um, for those listening to us in the US, it may not be common, but for those in Canada, they all know about Indigenous land acknowledgement that are being read. This French Catholic school board, following consultancy with me, where I notably trained and educated the senior leaders on equity, diversity, and inclusivity issues, they adopted to include Indigenous land acknowledgement, and after that, to include the reading of an anti Black racism statement. This is a Catholic school board that has notably uh, further embraced recognition of LGBTQ people, just as to give more value and place, not just to Black history, but also to hire more Black staff. So this is not exactly, yes, it's Christian and Catholic, but quite far from what I'm speaking of in terms of right wing, which these parties in Europe, but also as we see the situation in Louisiana, but truly Trump supporters, aka those white evangelicals, they are wishing for a return to the 1950s of the white men in power, women in the kitchen and household, and blacks in segregation, if not colonization, but basically kicked out of the countries. Notice all the controversies regarding abortion. They're trying to limit abortion for white women. Nobody's fighting to limit abortion on black women. Nobody's caring about abortion on Latina women. It's abortion on white women they're trying to stop. So this growth of right-wing movements in the West is part of a larger conversation. You may have heard the term the Great Replacement. It's a French. It's actually from France. A French uh, racist terminology, which basically, long story short, uh, implies a paranoia of white people that non-whites will replace them, and by replace, you have to understand, will eliminate them as a revenge of history of what whites have done to them to dominate the world. But all of this is part of a greater conversation regarding changing demographics. For those who haven't heard, the falling birth rates in Western countries, and by Western include Japan here, the falling birth rate, and by default, the growing birth rate from Africa and blacks worldwide. So these right-wing movements and the use notably of religion, such as, in Louisiana, the imposition of the Ten Commandments and the justification in terms of abortion, etc., are very much, and I mean very much, part of this white lash that we talk about regarding EDI, white lash, regarding the resentment, the anger of ideological whites against the progress of minorities. It's not the first time, it's not the last time, but this is the time that we are living in right now.
Interesting. Let me ask, do you find the far right and Republicans strange bedfellows at all?
In principle, yes, because notably when you look at Trump, the support that he has from evangelicals, Trump represents the very opposite of everything they claim to be about. We have an openly, I mean, Trump is openly racist. I don't care people showing photos of him with Muhammad Ali at an event. No, Trump is openly racist. The fact that he has people like Mike Tyson means nothing. The man is openly racist, has decades long of history of racism, but he's also sexist. And as if it's not enough, not only was it already known that in terms of business, he's a thief because he has stolen from the United States, but he's also a rapist. And this is the person that evangelicals in the US want to associate with. But in fairness, if someone really reads the Bible, people who committed such acts, whether it's Cain, whether it's King David stealing Uri's wife, whether it's whoever it is, Jacob sorry, not Jacob, Isaac tricking his brother Esau. These are people who got praised in the Bible. These are people who basically got advancement, promotions from God. So, strange bedfellows, it seems like it in terms of morality, but really, it's a racial matter. It's a matter of whiteness trying to cling to maintain its power. Whiteness basically that has reached a point where, I mean, the issues that we're talking about in terms of right wing and the Western world, and of course, I'm saying whiteness. It's not each and every white person who agrees with this. Absolutely not. But we have to understand that for those whites who agree with this, it's not complicated. They just need to convince the woman to go back in the household and have anywhere from 4 to 6 children and to kick out the migrants, to do the hard labor that the migrants do, notably cheap labor. They're not going to do it. And they know they're not going to do it. So they try by other means. This is why, notably, you end up having voter suppression, where they try to use any different type of means to restrict the possibilities of voting for non-whites. And as we are black people, foolishly, we have many black people who basically ascribe to this type of rhetoric, will find justifications to vote for someone like Trump. Someone like Trump that they think is such a great man, and yet look at the exonerated five, aka Central Park Five. Trump would have called for any person who was black to be jailed and throw the keys away. Now, I just have to state one thing very important because I know how I'm sounding and I know how some people may hear me here. I'm not into leftist, aka a Democrat, no matter how people can hear me here. I am not. Yes, I do support um, black LGBTQ. So when people hear that, they may think, oh, Cesar is a lefty, but I'm not. But I'm also not, how do you call that, a conservative, even though I support the death penalty. I'm a Pan Africanist. I don't do into the Western political lens of left and right. No, I'm a Pan Africanist, and my Pan Africanism will have me calling out the Republicans just as calling out the Democrats. The only difference is if you are truly and honest, very honest, uh, right wing parties in the West, whether we call them Republicans or we call them conservatives in Canada, tend to be more openly racist, more in denial of racism as well. I mean, we're talking about the Republicans in the US. Right here in Canada, the Conservative Party, despite notably some black members, such as, I'm forgetting her name, I'm thinking Lisa Leslie, but I'm
No,
not.
Leslyn Lewis.
Yes, yes. Uh, Despite having some black members, the Conservative Party right here in Canada denies the existence of systemic racism. It denies, despite all the documented proofs and all that. No, so
So what do you feel is the basis of the rise of the right wing in many Western countries? What's the reasoning?
excellent question. So it's complex, and I'm trying to summarize it. I'm going to try to summarize it to three elements. Part of the reason is because of the failure. So I'm going to try not to make it too complicated. 1991 to 2001, shift in the Western world. So 1991, you had the fall of the USSR. So basically, the failure of communism. But what happened is that Western liberal democracies, starting with the United States, failed to convert the failure of communism and the fall of the USSR into better living options for people. And then it brings us to 2001, where you see me coming, September 11, and you know basically the war on terror. So what it actually did is that instead of taking opportunities to create better societies, it actually created, by default of liberal capitalism and globalization, it created a more unequal society. And a more unequal society basically makes it that you will have those who will manipulate the sentiments of people in pointing the finger at the more vulnerable ones, such as the blacks, the women, the gay LGBTQ, and of course, the migrants. Just listen to the rhetoric of candidate Donald Trump in 2016, but also in 2020. Listen to right here in Canada. Was it 2015? A certain Stephen Harper was talking about the migrants. The real issue is actually a matter of unequal redistribution of wealth among the population. This is why I give you a perfect example. Look at us in Canada. Despite the poverty issues, and we often hear about how there's a lack of funding and a lack of money for social services, Canada still finds ways to pump billions of dollars into failed submarines and war equipment that we all know they will not use. We all know they will not use. I don't think anyone in Canada, and I say this without any disrespect to the Canadian Army, I have friends in the Canadian Army, uh, much love to them, but the truth of the matter is this: no Canadian truly believes that the Canadian Army is a standing army that can protect Canada. We look at the United States for that. And it's not that we need to look at the United States. The United States has this thing called the Monroe Doctrine, where from Canada to Brazil, it's the zone of influence. That's it, that's all. So it doesn't matter that we're talking about Canada or Brazil. Ultimately, the United States has made it official since the 19th century. The Americas are the zone of influence of the United States. They will not tolerate a rival power. This is part of the reason why. How is it that you can have the United States sending weapons to Ukraine, and apparently it's the most normal thing, sending weapons to Ukraine, to Israel, billions of dollars, and you just have some Russian ships traveling to Cuba, and it's a big story because of the zone of influence. So that's one thing, the failure to convey the fall of the USSR and September 11 into better societies, but it's also because of the failure of integration of migrants. It's kind of like employment. It's not enough to hire. The real challenge is not to hire diversity. The real challenge is to retain diversity. If your employment has a revolving door, that means there are deeper issues within than a matter of hiring and representation. So it's the same thing that you end up having. Now, Canada does this better despite all the issues such as police brutality and disproportionate representation of blacks, etc., in statistics. But when you compare this to other countries, and I give the example of a country I know well because I come from France, it's worse over there. So the proper integration of migrants is fundamental. When that fails, what ends up happening is that it creates more resentment from what I call the Johns and Marys who are born on the wrong side of town, aka born in poverty, will become manipulated by intellectual whites, such as Jordan Peterson, such as Mathieu Bocoté on the Quebec side, Eric Zemmour in France, will basically manipulate the sensitivities, aka the ignorance, the poverty, and point the fingers to those minority groups that are women and the feminists. Not all women are feminists. Not all feminists are anti-man, but they all get lumped together by these people. They point the fingers at blacks. They point the fingers, and yet the black community is actually pretty conservative. But they point the fingers to women, blacks, LGBT, migrants, etc., in terms of claiming if you are white and poor and you're suffering, it's because of them. Instead of looking at the rich white person who is basically crushing them, getting richer and richer. And I would say the third aspect of this resentment is a general change of society. When you are used to being on top, and here I can give the example of South Africa uh, post apartheid, where you have blacks who are called the born free. So they're born after apartheid. They've never known apartheid, and the reality being different, the perception of poverty is different than for those who were born during apartheid. This is why the ANC of Cyril Ramaphosa got its lowest score. They cannot play any longer on the emotional victimization from apartheid. So what ends up happening is simply that the change of society, those who are used to being at the top basically get pushed over, and they're looking at religion no longer being in school. They're looking at men not earning enough. They're looking at anything and everything instead of addressing their own power and privilege that they benefited without sharing, and as such, they become very defensive, counter-reactionary. These are three of the elements that are pushing the right-wing movement. And of course, when we're talking about that, a society that's more educated is less religious, and a society that's more educated is a society that makes less children. White people are having less children. They're
Yes.
living longer, but they're having less children. And they're looking at the minorities having more children. They're looking at more and more people, notably white, coming out, embracing the LGBTQ identity. These are things that make many, many, many feel very uncomfortable and resentful.
There we go. I think we just got a good breakdown, and I think it's a great time to take a break. because Cesar laid it down on what's going on, and definitely people keep a watch on what the elections say in France. You may not live there, but it's going to have a big impact.
Oh yeah.
If it happens, they're saying they're not going to go far right, but they're saying center right. So even then, so it's going to be interesting. Aligned with the next topic we're going to be chatting about the break is: are we ready to live in a world, especially in the Western world, that major companies are run by right wing? America had it a few years ago, but it may be coming back, and that's what we're going to talk about, the coming back piece, because we've got a debate coming up this Thursday. So got to talk about it. Keep it locked. We'll be back in 2 minutes on Black Canada Talking. See ya.
And that's what I feel like. You feel like you're the Harry Tubman of the mind.
I am.
I feel like I'm I'm one of the Harry Tubmans of intelligent Black people. Like, I want to liberate y'all from like being left behind and ignored and oblivion. Now, really, the rappers get all the attention. Seriously, does anybody else feel this way? Like ignorant Black people, they'll be all up, getting all the headlines on the Shade Room.
Overly sexualized Black folks.
Like the twerkers and the just people that don't always represent the best of us. The diversity. Like people like Dr. Vibe. Like everybody should know about people like Dr. Vibe. Dr.
Really
Vibe he's trying to do good work for Black people. Dr. Vibe from Toronto. Good to see you, my brother. Dr. Vibe. Everybody follow Dr. Vibe. He has a great show. He's very good at what he does, and I have a lot of respect for him. The men who are also doing the same thing. I see Dr. Vibe in here. He's a great brother. Everybody should follow Dr. Vibe, by the way. He's a smart brother in Canada, and we need to follow smart people. So follow Dr. Vibe. If you see him in the chat, and Dr. Vibe, say your name in the chat so people can see you. I want you to click on his name, and I want you to go follow him, please, because I want these men and women that are doing the right things to get the support they deserve. Hey, Dr. Vibe, how you doing, brother? Again, like I always do, I got to say everybody should go follow Dr. Vibe. He's got a great show. Dr. Vibe, I know Dr. Vibe's got a kingdom because I see your channel. I see you pouring into that every day. Everybody should follow Dr. Vibe, by the way. Look him up, Dr. Vibe, V-I-B-E. He's a great friend of me and my wife, and I love this guy.
Okay, so let me hop into this. What's up, Dr. Vibe? How you doing? Everybody, if you see Dr. Vibe in the chat, everybody go follow the Dr. Vibe show. Dr. Vibe is a real smart brother and a good human being. I like the guy a lot, and he's very intelligent. And I think everyone should pay attention to what he's got going on. We got to shine the spotlight on the intelligent Black people out here that are really doing the good work. Don't just pay attention to the rappers and the celebrities. A lot of these people are losers. Your true winners are your people in your community that are really having your back. Helping us to have stronger families and a stronger community. So Dr. Vibe is in that category. So you might see the Dr. Vibe show in this chat. If you see him, please go follow him. Okay. All right. So anyway.
All right, we're back. Hailing up Dr. Boyce and Dr. Alicia Watkins. And there may be something interesting coming up with them soon. I'm just going to leave that as a teaser. Not going to say anything more than that. We're on Black Canada Talking, broadcasting live on June 23rd. Want to say, if you want to get a hold of Cesar, there is his email address, present@rootsandculturecanada.com, and also his Facebook link, Cesar Remember Emery. You go check him out there. Cesar, there is a debate coming up, the first debate for the U.S. presidential race coming up this Thursday. And interesting enough, it's a critical debate. Usually people say debates happen closer to the election date, which they remember. But this is being seen as there's a lot of different factors going on in this debate. What do you have to say?
The debate between the first president felon, and he's a felon. He's a criminal.
But okay, let's just stop right there. Isn't it interesting in America that if you're a felon, it's starting to change in some states now, but in the majority of states, if you're a felon, you can't vote, but you can run for president.
And this is coming from the so-claimed party of law and order. The so-called party that basically politically harassed, almost to the point of termination, our heroes, the Black Panthers, by the former governor of California, a certain Ronald Reagan. This is coming from the party of law and order that basically, the war on drugs took it to another level, that overwhelmingly targeted Black communities and Black families until a certain Am I forgetting his name? Is it Noriega or North? The Iron Gate scandal in the 80s, where the U.S. government ended up admitting that they were the ones who were bringing the drugs into black communities. This is the same president who basically, what was it again? The Central Park Five, that how they should be jailed and the keys thrown
Yes,
away.
yes, 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 yes.
This man who is a crook in business, and this is not any personal attacks or I hate Trump. No, 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 please. Why do I know Trump to hate him? Who do I hate? I don't hate anyone. So, as I was saying, this crook in business, because it has been demonstrated, um, and it has been demonstrated uh, before even his conviction in New York regarding the business practices of Trump. This crook in business, this racist, who has a long history of racial abuse and insults, and interestingly, you see how weak uh, the Republicans are when you have people like Marco Rubio and I'm forgetting the name of the senator from Texas who is also Canadian.
Oh, I know. Oh, I can't remember his name. I know who you're. Oh, I
Yeah,
can't remember. Can't remember, but I know who you're talking about. I know who you're talking about. I'll find
but
out.
but all of them, Marco Rubio, Mitch McConnell, having gone to kiss the ring of Trump because they're so scared of his base, aka the MAGA, aka the very likeliness that the certitude that Trump will get at least 30% of votes. And you end up having even someone like Nikki Haley, uh, an Indian woman. For those who don't know, she is white, yes, but she's not white European. She's white Indian. An Indian woman who basically claims she would support Trump despite this man having insulted her
Oh
family, her
yeah.
background, and everything. So it really tells you the character of the person and someone that, and it's very interesting. I shared an article about how even science confirms that effectively Trump voters are dumb. DUMB. I'm sorry. This may be offensive to some, Dr. Vibe. If anyone wants to, come forward with a lawsuit because of what I've said, there's an article that's actually, Dr. Vibe, I sent you the article in my links and
Yes,
resource email
yes,
to professional
yes,
sectors.
yes.
So it is there. It's not me saying it. Trump uses some very basic language, and he makes up. This man is. He was trying to paint in court his former lawyer and pusher, if you can call it that way, Michael Cohen, as uh, what was he? Greatest lawyer of all time. But Trump is but Trump is a chronic liar. Like literally, I see on different news channel how journalists spend so much time debunking his lies. And even on Fox News, he has been called out once or twice, but he has been called out even on Fox News that hey, what he's spreading is false. And yet, this felon is still running for president when if you're a felon, especially if you're black in the US, your life is pretty much over. The exceptions are the ones who succeed with such. On the other side, we have Joe Biden, whose son has become the first son of a president in exercise convicted, aka a felon also. But it's not Hunter Biden was running for presidency. And interestingly enough, Hunter Biden has basically come forth with a defense regarding the gun that he had in his possession, which is becoming a bit of an issue for conservative Republicans because they like to defend the Second Amendment, aka the right to bear arms, and now is the son of the enemy president who is at the forefront of the right to bear arms. No, this debate will be interesting. will be interesting because Trump would like to poke at Biden because of his age. He's only 3 years younger. I mean, he's not. He's not. This is not a 20 years age gap. He's 3 years younger, and he has a memory that keeps diminishing
Yeah.
more and more. And it will also be interesting because we see further and further the polarization of the debate in America. We see it further and further in terms of how you look at Biden. I mean, for those who wonder, the protests over Gaza and Palestine, it's a very small minority of people in the US. Meanwhile, Trump is poking at anger and resentment of people, not just in the economy, but also in terms of changing times, as I was saying, change of culture. All these EDI, DEI, as they call it in the US, all of these, LGBTQ acceptance of others. Trump is basically trying to awaken and to rally to his side the vote of the angry. Meanwhile, Biden is truly rallying the vote of those who fear Trump. Neither man is truly popular. Yes, Trump has more popularity because it's kind of like a sect. Like, I'm purposefully repeating some of the language that we hear in the news, but it's true. MAGA, it's a movement that's like a sect. It's nothing compared to what the Tea Party used to be. It's nothing compared to that.
So just to interrupt here, Share Knight. Hello, Share Knight says, good evening. Were you perhaps referring to Ted Cruz? Yes, I did the research, but you beat me to it. And Share Knight also says, Ted Cruz went on vacation to Mexico while millions of Texans were without proper electricity or water. Disgrace to Canadians. So let me ask Cesar, when you see Biden versus Trump running for president, what does that tell you about America?
The reference I'm going to give you might surprise you. We are in 2024. Well, it's roughly 4 years. No, it's more than four. It's more, sorry, not 40 years. We got to go back to the 80s, and I will help you here. A certain TV show called The Simpsons, the dumbing down of America. And before anyone thinks I'm exaggerating, no. Look it up. It's an academic concept. The dumbing down of America is basically what has led to notably someone like Donald Trump being able to come into power. And when you see such a thing as Joe Biden, in terms of as his contestant, beyond the matter of their age, it's a polarization of America coming out of having had its first black president. There are people who will never accept that America had a black president. There are people who will never accept that, and I mean, this may be surprising because I'm not a fan of her. On paper, Hillary Clinton was arguably the best. So this might really be surprising. Hillary Clinton and Richard Nixon, on paper, were arguably two best candidates to be president of the United States in terms of the achievements prior to becoming president. Hillary failed, of course, but it's basically a society, an empire that's crumbling from within. It's like something I often tell people. Whether you talk about enemies of America, you don't need to invade America. You don't need to do an open war to America. America kills itself. Just look at the number of people who die every year due to gun violence, and yet you have the power of the NRA and people like Wayne LaPierre. I can't remember if he's still the current.
No, he got turfed out.
There you go.
He got turfed out. Yes, Wayne LaPierre is no longer head of the NRA, and that's a huge scandal there too.
You see, this is a society where, but I mean, it's an empire, it doesn't just crumble by itself, and it doesn't just crumble because of external forces. It crumbles from within first before the external. And this is why we're seeing in America, oh yes, America is still very strong. But to give you some perspectives, I was still reading today about how China has already overtaken America, depending on how you're looking at economic data. China has already overtaken America economically. But the true takeover as number one power in the world is expected to come between 2050 to 2100. And we're talking here about also India becoming stronger. We're talking about other countries such as Nigeria, such as Brazil. You know, these countries have a lot of black people. And Africa, with its booming demographics, where by between 2050 and the end of the 20th of the century, so 2100, you are talking about one human out of three who will be Africans. I
I,
didn't say black.
I was going to ask you this question. You may know this. Would you say Africa is the only continent in the world of continents that's having an increase in overall population?
Hmm.
I don't know.
Excellent question.
You may or may not know, but because we know that the continent of Africa, the population is rising, but in other places in the world, for example, China, reduced birth rate. North America, reduced birth rates, reduced birth
Yes.
weight.
Yes. So it's a matter of perspective of how you look at it. So when we're talking about demographics, it's more visible when you look at places like Japan, South Korea, Italy, you have crisis, and we're talking here about uh, what one could call the indigenous populations, right? Not talking about migrations. When you look in terms of continents, well, even China is seeing a declining birth rate, notably due to the one-child policy that they used to have, but also because of the increased cost of life. Uh, Africa, the reason you have such explosion of demographics is not just because of poverty, as so many people like to say, and lack of education or even oppression of women. Africa is greatly unpopulated. It may be shocking to people after decades of hearing that Africa is overpopulated and they need to reduce the population. Absolutely not. You know, I'm going to come back to slavery and colonization here and remind people.
Before you go any further, just want to, there's some good questions coming up here in regards to, but I just took a look, the top 15 countries with the highest fertility rates, births by women. This is from the World Bank. Okay. Niger, Angola, DR Congo, Mali, Benin, Chad, Uganda, Somalia, South Sudan, Burundi, Guinea, Mozambique, Guinea, Bissau, Nigeria, Sudan. So the majority of the countries on that list are on the African continent.
But it's no surprise. It's no surprise. We're talking about since the 7th century. Since the 7th century, and I will tell you the specific year, 639, when white Arab Muslims came to Africa and began the targeted slave trade of blacks. We're talking about, and this led to, I am one to say, the numbers of 100 to 200 million Africans deported as killed. And when we talk about the Western transatlantic slave trade that truly began in the 15th century, 1443, 1444, with the Portuguese in Capo Verde. They say 15 million. Those are the lowest numbers that can be certified. So you can estimate that it is much more than 15 million. Africa got depopulated. And when I say depopulated, it wasn't the senior citizens they were taking away. It was the youth. It was the teenagers, young adults, adults in the 30s and 40s who basically could reproduce. So here you having a continent that is not exploding in demographics, a continent that is catching up to what was taken away from him. If you get stolen $1 million, suddenly you're making a lot of money fast. Are you really making a lot of money fast? Or are you trying to catch up to the million that was stolen from you? Like, we have to be realistic here. So yes, it's easy to say, like I was saying earlier, that these African countries are having an exploding birth rate because of poverty, religion, lack of women's rights, etc., etc. But it's also in reaction to the harms of history, slavery and colonization, but also ongoing neocolonization and globalization that is not truly benefiting Africa. I mean, last week, today is Sunday, so earlier this week, there was a conference in Paris on health and safety of medication. How many people realize that? I think if my math is correct, it's 90 or 99% of medication in Africa are not made in Africa. This speaks to the state of the development of this country. So by default, what ends up happening? People will have more children. They're not living a better life. And at the same time, they're not living a better life. You have so many who are exiting the continent looking for a better life. So the number of blacks, of Africans will also increase in Western countries. This is something that makes these white right-wing militants be very nervous.
All right, we got to bring it back. We went a little bit off topic, but we'll come back to it now. Share Knight has a question. What are your thoughts on the rumors that President Biden may step down and Gavin Newsom may replace him and run against 45? Are you saying do you think any truth to that rumor?
No, I do not. As unpopular as Joe Biden is, how many people actually know Gavin Newsom, to be quite honest, outside of California and outside of, actually being Democrat Party fans or supporters? They don't know him. It would be a very unwise move, to say the least.
She also asked, the argument seems that many people will simply vote for 45 out of fear that Vice President Harris will take over if President Biden is no longer able to function as president. What do you think? I think, I don't know. That one I don't. Is it fear of the black woman?
Listen, let's be blunt here. Canada had the fake, when I say fake, this woman was not fake. And I'm having a memory blank right now. Canada had a female prime minister for a few months. Kim Campbell, there you go. But that was to avoid a humiliation of defeat on Brian Mulroney's Conservatives. We are here in 2024. America has not yet had a female president. And as I was saying, one of the two best candidates to be president were Richard Nixon and Hillary Trump. I'm talking here in regards to American interest.
You mean Hillary Clinton, not Hillary Trump. She would never allow that last name. Hillary Clinton.
Did I say Hillary Trump?
Yes, you did.
Okay, from a black perspective, are they really that different? To be quite honest, I mean, if I were Haitian, Hillary Clinton, Hillary Trump, same people, right? But yes, Hillary Clinton. Mexico just elected its first female prime minister, who is also of Jewish background.
Yes, that is right.
When we like to talk about development, how developed is truly America? And when you look at Africa, Rwanda is a country in the world with the highest representation of women in parliament, 61%. Does America want to compare? Does Canada want to compare?
So Share Knight also says both isms, racism and sexism.
Absolutely. So Kamala Harris is a heartbeat away from the White House, from the Oval Office. She deserves it. Why would she deserve it? So if some people want to vote for Trump because they don't want to see her in power, that's their problem. Some people didn't vote for Obama because he's black, not because of his policies.
Do you feel that a number of Americans feel that the best for America is to go to the past of America?
Past of America. When you're black, what does that mean? When was America ever great for us black people?
Okay, let me rephrase it. Do you feel a number of non-melanated Americans feel that the best of America is the past of America?
That's because they don't know their own history. Would you think we're the second group that was most lynched in the US after black people? Italians. So now we have Italians who are racist, but you just go back a few decades, just 100 years ago. Just as I give trainings and educate public servants and senior leaders, why is it that the mafia, aka organized crime, was created by the Irish, Southern Italians? So it's not just Italians, Southern Italians, aka Sicilians, and Jewish people. 100 years ago, they were not considered white. 100 years ago, they were not considered white. When we look at someone like Clarence Thomas and his Becky of a wife, does he want to go back to 1966? I didn't say 67, Loving versus Virginia, that allowed interracial relationship to be legal. I'm talking 1966, when it was illegal. To what extent do people, aka white people, truly want to go to the past of America, considering when we look at the example in courses, why Kansas keep voting Republicans when Republicans, and this is not exclusive to the state of Kansas, Republicans have a habit of lying to the voters by always playing on fear, insecurity, and sentiments of the past being better while they keep pocketing themselves. They're in bed with big oil. They're in bed with big pharma. Like, I absolutely sound like I'm a leftist, but I'm not a leftist. But we got to call it what it is. So what ends up happening is simply that time and again, when whites talk about wanting to go back to the past, such as I see those people with the MAGA hats and being so ultra MAGA and all that, you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of what happened on the other side of the ocean. Every time you have a baby born at Buckingham Palace or Windsor Palace, and you have all these people being so happy for the birth of a new prince, or you know what I mean? These people are the descendants of the peasants who were crushed by the royalty, who were killed. So they want to go back to the past. They can if they want. They just suffer as their grandfathers and great grandfathers were suffering. Hello, Yum Yum.
There we go. The boss of the house is here. That means we got to start ending it up soon. Do you want to do one more topic, or should we let the boss rule?
Let's do it for a few minutes. Yum Yum, tu peux donner à papa 5 minutes? Okay, give me 5 minutes and I come back, okay? Go downstairs.
Okay, we got 5. We need more time on this, but we'll chat on this last conversation piece. We were talking before the show. Is the economy really great? And I talked with Cesar before we went live here. You're hearing a lot of economists saying, things are getting better. Politicians, things are getting better. But are they really? I get the sense that things are getting people who are the elites, but for many people, the economy ain't great. Cesar, there we go. I saw that. What are your thoughts, Cesar? Like, are we being misled?
No, so first and foremost, I must state I'm not an economist. However, one cannot claim to be a Pan-Africanist and not discuss economics, just as addressing EDI issues and power relations in society, we must talk about economics. So what really ends up happening is simply that the real issue is less about whether the economy is great or not, but a matter of wealth redistribution. We live in basically in a society where the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer, and there's a diminishing of the middle class. Yet, and let us give this Pan-Africanist angle here, a great philosopher of the 20th century called it out. His name, Tupac Shakur. What did he say? He was talking about how they can't feed the poor but always have money for wars. Let's look at how many billions are going. Zaza, please hold on. Let's look at how many billions are going for Israel. Zaza, get down, please. How many billions are going for Israel? How many billions are going in the military industrial complex? President Eisenhower, Ike, was denouncing this in the 50s. It's a matter of priorities. That's all it is. It's not a matter of so much the economy. The economy, apparently, from what the experts are saying, is doing better, but the people are not really feeling it. The people are not really seeing the dividends of that economy being redistributed into social programs. Meanwhile, they're seeing The rich are getting richer. The celebrities becoming richer. At the same time, it's a matter of value and culture. The same people who will complain about the price of gas will still go buy tickets for the basketball game. They will still go buy tickets for the concert. So it's where they choose to put the money. Like at the same time, you can't complain of the rising price of gas, very rightfully, and yet you're the same person who was buying tickets to go see some celebrity. Just look at what happened. I give an example. What's his name? That artist, Chris Brown, and having fans, especially female fans, paying over $1,000 to take a photo with him. They're not broke. They're clearly not broke, but they have misplaced priorities. We talking about the economy? Let's be honest here. Let us dare to be honest among black people here. We hear a lot of black people will talk about, how they're broke and the economy and this and that, but they're gonna go buy the next pair of Jordans. They're gonna go put that $200, $300 into sneakers that are worth what? $15, $20? We have too many sisters where we put money into a visibly fake weave and wig, and yet we complain about the price of milk to feed the children. I'm sorry, I have to be blunt in saying this. We basically have black people who will complain about the economy and the price of this and that, but they will go waste their money into tithes in church every Sunday. It becomes a problem. It's not just absolutely, yes, the experts seem to all say the economy is doing better. And technically, under Trump, what made the economy seem good to many was thanks to the Obama administration. It wasn't because of Trump per se. Trump still shows that he does not understand the topics that he talks about. He's a populist. He will say anything and everything if it helps to get him votes. That's why even people, Republicans, notably evangelicals, he keeps flip-flopping on them. 1 week he'll say he'll agree with this, to catch him 2-3 weeks later say the opposite. He doesn't know the topics and he doesn't have a clear position on things. So when people ask if the economy is really great, I'm not an economist, please. I'm not here speaking in terms of facts. I'm speaking from my opinions, but educated opinions that basically allow me to say wealth redistribution. Look at how much money is being put into the military, into helping Ukraine, helping Israel. Notice when we have migrants, refugees coming from Haiti, Congo, all those black countries and Arab countries, the facilitation is difficult for them. Social services are difficult for them. But if they're coming from Ukraine, it's a red carpet. As I teach public servants and senior leaders, it's important to understand the notions of interest, will, and means. You cannot live in a society where the rich get richer and actually think the economy is doing bad. It is doing good. The wealth redistribution is what's not happening truthfully. But at the same time, it's too easy to just point the finger at rich people. Common people struggling to pay their bills, somehow, some way find the ways to pay for that concert ticket, to pay for that sports ticket, to pay for those weaves, to pay for those sneakers while complaining. That's a problem of culture and values, of misplaced priorities. That's basically it.
For the culture, that term, for the culture. Well, look, we'll end it off there because Boss Lady is ringing. But there was a comment here. I don't know if you can answer it or not. Roy, he said, how do you explain Meloni of Italy having the best approval rating of all G7 leaders?
It's not surprising. So this is an excellent question because I was actually addressing that yesterday on a platform in France where, a lot of black people are fearful of the elections next Sunday in France. So, and these elections, listen, people are following them from Canada to Brazil, people in the right-wing parties, because if France officially, France is one of the, I mean, I hate to put it that way, one of the most important countries in the world in terms of influence. So one of the things that happen is when you ask about Meloni, it's the same thing as in France. In politics, it's important to understand there's a difference between the rhetoric and the ideological discourse, notably to get elected, versus the reality of being in power and running government and society. We saw this very well with the Trump rhetorics from 2016 to 2020, between what he claimed that he was assuring that he would do. You would basically be thinking that, if you Muslim, you're going to be kicked out of the US, or if you're Latino, blah, 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 you can't get in. No. In politics, there's a difference between rhetorical and ideological discourse versus the actual practice of power. And what happens with Meloni, this is something many people don't know. Openly fascist party, no problem. She was very blunt and honest about that. Good. I mean, it's not good to have a fascist party, but she was good on being honest. But she adjusted her politics. This is the same fascist party leader who opened immigration to, I can't remember if it's 400,000 or 450,000 migrants from Africa in accord with African governments, who basically worked on renegotiating the geopolitical relations of Rome, aka Italy, with other African nations, notably in terms of development. This is the Italy that calls out France on neocolonialism, notably with the franc CFA, aka French economical policies in Africa that keep impoverishing Africans while maintaining France with a zone of influence in Africa, what is called le pré-carré africain. You see? I am so sorry. She's 3 years old. She's doing her thing.
It's all right. It's cool. It's hey, she's part of the show, so I accept it.
She's saying bye to her friend by the window. Sarah is leaving. You said bye to her. Good job, Yum Yum. Good job.
All right. Well, look, as always, thanks for taking time.
No,
to
thank you. Thank you.
As always, looking forward to always having you on. As always, if you want to get in touch with Cesar, it's in the comment section on any of the platforms you're watching the replay on. And anything coming up with you? Anything you're working on? Any presentations, etc.? I know you have something on Thursday.
Yeah, Thursday, 9:30 p.m. Please reach out on the YouTube channel, but also Facebook. Brother Malachi Gross, Malachi, Malachi, Gross, Gross, Life Coach Malachi on YouTube. He interviewing me at 9:30 p.m. on Eastern time on religious trauma. So this is based on my presentation that went international for the certification course of the. Did you hear that?
Yes, I did.
She's telling her friends were outside. She's smiling. Oh yeah, okay. Charlotte is coming over. Thanks for informing me.
Well, she's the boss of the house. I told you. Don't you know that by now? I know that.
Yeah. So the interview 9:30 Eastern time Thursday, YouTube, Facebook, on Black religious trauma, because it's a taboo, controversial, avoided topic, very important to address, notably in this year of elections, not just in the U.S.
Canada's next year.
World, Canada next year.
You know, look, this summer, you're going to see the politicians out there shaking hands and kissing babies.
And you know what happens with, and this is not a criticism of white politicians per se, but white politicians, when it's time for elections, suddenly you see them appearing in black churches. They love black people.
Well, the former president of the United States just did it just recently in a big church in Detroit. So there you go.
See what I mean? So when elections are around, suddenly, oh my God, they love that gospel music and oh, kumbaya. you know. So, but this speaks to the weakness of our people to keep falling for
Yeah.
this,
Yes.
to
The
keep falling for this. But
okey doke all the time.
what pastor or priest is going to refuse this politician? But it's disastrous. We don't respect ourselves, and then we ask how come they don't respect us.
100%. Take care, my brother. We'll chat soon.
Thank you so much, Dr. Vibe. Thank you, everyone. And hopefully I see many of you on Thursday.
Be well. All right, everybody. There's Cesar's contact information. We had to let him go because the boss of the house was, calling shots. So that's it. All right. So before we close it up for the day, let's do this. Subscribe to the Dr. Vibe Show on YouTube and hit the notification button. At this time, we're about 30 or 40 subscriptions away from 1,500 subscribers. So if you're up to it, please subscribe. And also follow the Dr. Vibe Show on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook. Also, if you want to advertise your business product or service on any of the platforms that I'm a part of, please email me dr.vibe@thedrvibeshow.com. And you can watch replays of this epic conversation on the Dr. Vibe Show on YouTube and Facebook and the website, thedrvibeshow.com. And here are all the places you can touch base with me. Website, as I mentioned, thedrvibeshow.com, YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn, The Dr. Vibe Show, which is THE space DR period space VIBE space SHOW. Instagram at the DRVIBESHOW, X/Twitter at DRVIBESHOW, and email dr.vibe@the.drvibeshow.com. That's it. So as always, we end off with this. Live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get small to get stronger. Block assumptions and aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. Love, faith, and respect. And remember, don't just manage your time, manage your energy. And remember to give yourself grace. God bless. Peace be well. Keep the faith and walk good.